Y'all, we need music, not gonna lie. I think we may need some music for this. Um I however do not know if I did a certain thing, and that certain thing is set up the thing, right? So give me let me add I'm gonna go with display capture. No, I don't want that. No, cancel. Hold. um, technical difficulties, don't worry. Hi, Benny, welcome in. Dude, this is so fucking bad. Oh my god. Add source. Window capture. Okay. There we go. Alright, y'all. Um, I need to move this. Nope, that's wrong. I did that wrong. Shit. There we go. Okay, okay, we're good. Everything's fine. I figured it out. Everything's good. Alright. So, alright, I'm kind of concerned about the fact that my OBS is deciding to not work for whatever strange reason that I am not aware of. But I am able to see enough. So, I will be reading a... Okay, so I'm gonna give a little background knowledge as to what the puppet experiment is. So the puppet experiment is part 1 out of 2 of a CSMP Horkos AU. This is an alternate universe of Horkos having a social experiment similar to that of Insiders. And I'm currently working on Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is in the works, don't worry. But so far we have Chapters 1 and 2. So, alright. I need to get into the mindset, but, alright. Okay, we can start. Michael paced the floor, tail swishing anxiously. He looked around at the 5 others with him. The group sat in a strange, dark room made of void. A single lantern hung above them, being the only light source in the room. Hi, Bly, welcome in. Are we going to introduce ourselves, or what? One of the strangers asked. She was shorter than Michael, which didn't surprise him because he appeared to be the tallest one in the room. She had bright red wings that sort of reminded him of a cardinal. Oh my god, I need to fix this fucking bot. Anyway. Right. Yeah. I'm Michael. Michael sighed, continuing his pacing. I'm Trinus. The shortest one piped up in a British accent. He didn't look much older than 12, but his voice was that of an adult. Ruby, the winged woman said. The winged woman stated. Call me Sakuras, a masked mortal said. They sounded nervous. Michael looked at the final 2. Neither of them seemed willing to speak up. The shorter one finally spoke up. "I'm Bunny!" she exclaimed. Michael looked at the final woman. Her hair wasn't normal hair. It was a mass of snakes. Her eyes were downcast. A gorgon, Michael thought. He walked over to her, kneeling down and looking at her forehead. "Hey, look at me," Michael told her. "I don't want to hurt you. You'll get turned to stone," she whispered. Michael sighed. "Believe me, you won't turn me to stone. I'm blessed by Ares. I can only die to weapons, not magic," he explained. She still refused to look at him. Michael gently turned her chin upwards, somewhat forcing eye contact. When they did lock eyes, the Gorgon jumped back and covered her eyes with two of the snakes on her head. "See? I'm fine. Here." Michael grabbed a pair of dark sunglasses out of his satchel. He handed them to the Gorgon, who took them gingerly and put them on. "Your magic only works if others look into your eyes, not if you look into theirs. So, if you wear those, you won't turn anyone to stone," Michael explained. The Gorgon looked around at the group. Nobody turned to stone at her gaze. "I'm Cadmus," she muttered. "Wait, your name's Michael, right? And you're blessed by Ares? Are you Michael Hubert, as in the Michael Hubert?" Bunny asked. Michael nodded. Yeah, that's me," he admitted. The group looked at him in shock. They didn't get any more time to react, though. A new person appeared in the room, their eyes glowing a deep purple. Their skin was a lighter gray than their hair. She wore a black cloak accented with purple and an allium flower crown around her head. She looked up, a look of calm insanity on her face. Michael knew that gaze well. "One? What's going on?" Michael asked. There was no response. That's not normal. Usually one is responsive. Maybe this is an apparition?" He thought. "Hello, mortals. Michael. You have been brought here to be a part of my social experiment. You will have to work together to get through games and trials. You'll be subjected to both group and individual tests." Tests. Whoa. But be warned, there's a traitor among you. I will explain more once we reach the first trial." The puppeteer smiled. It was the same sadistic smile Michael used to see on Fracture. Something happened. Something was very, very, very wrong. The group looked at the puppeteer, waiting for him to say something else. Or anything else, wow. That something else never came. The puppeteer raised their arms, causing the black walls of the void room to expand outwards for at least 1,000 blocks in every direction. The walls closed into some sort of dome, locking the group in an artificially lit birdcage. The puppeteer disappeared, leaving them in a brightly lit village. "What the fuck was that?" Ruby exclaimed. "I don't know. She's never acted this way before," Michael said in a hushed tone. "You know them? Like, personally?" Trinus cried. "Yeah. She's the first loop from the line my mother was from. He took care of me a few times," Michael explained. Bunny shuffled uncomfortably while Sakuras stared him down through their mask. Cadmus's eyebrows rose into their hairline. "So there's a traitor among us, and we have no idea who it is. We're basically just part of a massive social experiment." Ruby's wings puffed up for a moment. "Not again," Trinus muttered. "Okay, so what do we do now? What do we do? We can't trust each other, but we're clearly gonna need to if we want to survive. This is some bullshit." "What do you mean again, Trinus?" Sakuras questioned. I was part of one of these before. The puppeteer was there, but he never really did much, Trinus explained. Hostesses' little social experiments? Yeah, not surprised. We need to focus on what we do now. We're part of some sort of game that the puppeteer hosts. One of us is a traitor. We are trapped here in this strange village blocked off by this dome, Michael stated. The voices started screaming. Run! 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 The void is close by. They're violent. Fight! Shut, Michael whispered. Who were you talking to? Cadmus asked. I've been hearing voices since I was little. Whoa! They're saying something about the void and how it's hostile, Michael explained. How would they know? Ruby questioned. I don't know, but they're telling me to hide, Michael stated. There was the sound of loud screams, thousands of screams, in the not-so-distant distance. It's here, it's coming, it's going to infect the land, they are going to kill, they are under orders. The voices were screaming so loud that he couldn't hear anything else. Michael motioned for the group to follow him, ducking into the nearest house and drawing his sword. He locked the door and waited. The voices stayed at the same volume, but he was able to read Trinus's lips. Are you okay? Hello? Can you hear us? What's going on? Trinus frantically questioned. Silence! Be quiet! Be ready to fight! Blood! 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 They can smell you! Be quiet and get down. Whatever this void thing is, the voices think it's going to hurt us, Michael whispered. Or, at least, he hoped he whispered. There was a collective nod. The screams drew closer. Sakuras fumbled around for a moment before actually getting down. Michael blocked the door with his body, sword raised and eyes watching the small windows. The screams faded away just as quickly as they'd come. The voices finally went back to their more manageable volume. What the fuck was that? Ruby exclaimed. Michael shrugged. Stay in here. I'm going to make sure it's safe to get out, he commanded. The others nodded. Michael rose to his knees, opening the door carefully. There was nothing. He opened the door more, leaving the house. Nobody was there. Clear, Michael called back to the others. Cadmus guided Sakuras. Bunny skipped outside, and Trinus and Ruby stayed back for a moment before following everyone else. We should take refuge in some of these houses, set up shelters and things. I can help anyone who doesn't know what to do, Michael suggested. The others muttered in agreement. Tensions were high now. Lies, the puppeteer lies. Fight! Fight! The voices shouted. Shut up, Michael muttered to himself. It took a while, but Michael eventually found a house that could actually fit him inside without slamming his head into the ceiling, which he'd done about 5 times now, or slamming his tails into the door, which he had also done about 5 times now. The voices started rambling on and on about the infection again, which he'd learned not to pay attention to. There was a soft knock on his door. Hello? Michael sighed. He didn't see anyone until he looked down. Trinus was looking up at him with an almost innocent look in his eyes. Hello, Michael. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind me staying with you. It's perfectly fine if not, Trinus asked. Michael looked at Trinus, then inside the house, then back at Trinus. I think that's fine. There are 2 beds in here. I'll move the other a little farther away for you. He nodded. Michael moved out of the way of the entrance, motioning for Trinus to come inside. The extremely short 25-year-old walked in, muttering things like, thank you, and sorry for the intrusion. Once Trinus was inside, Michael closed the door and moved the other bed, which was only a few feet away from his own, to the other side of the house to give the two their own personal space. Don't be sorry. It's probably better for both of us to not be alone here, Michael said. He placed his bag on the ground. That's fair, I suppose. Still, sorry for bothering you so late. Trinus nodded, fidgeting with his hands. Give me 1 second. Alright. Don't be. I wasn't planning on sleeping for a little while longer anyways, Michael reassured him. Trinus made a face like he was trying to say something more, but he didn't. Michael sighed, sitting down on his own bed. We need to rest. Who knows what the puppeteer is planning for tomorrow? Michael yawned. Trinus nodded, curling up on his bed. Michael watched him for a moment. Trinus didn't seem fully human. No human he'd ever met had skin that looked as waxy as Trinus's. Still, he was far too tired to give a damn for now. Michael laid down on his bed, falling asleep with his sword propped up on the wall next to him. The puppet experiment shall begin momentarily. Please stand by as we prepare the first game. Serial numbers will be assigned in the morning. Alright, chat, that was Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Y'all, what did we think of Chapter 1? With my interesting narration. I'm gonna try and be more British for Trinus, though. Don't worry. Don't worry, chat. So silly. Yay. Alright. Chapter 2. Escape Room. Michael woke up with one of the worst headaches he'd ever had. The voices were screaming again, yet he didn't have the brain power to figure out what they were saying. Trinus was already awake. Michael looked outside, half expecting to see the sun rising. Of course, there was no sun in this dome thing. The only way to tell the time was how the light inside the dome was perceived. During the day, the dome gave off the illusion of sunlight. It did the same for the nighttime. Trinus tapped Michael's arm. Michael grunted. Trinus said something he couldn't hear. Michael made a motion to his ears, yet Trinus clearly didn't understand. Michael sighed, holding up a hand so Trinus would stop talking just long enough to get his sketchbook out of his bag. He grabbed his pencil, wrote, "Voices are too loud. I can't hear you," and handed it to his roommate. Trinus made a motion for the pencil. The shorter man scribbled down his own note and showed it to Michael. "Check your wrist," it said. Michael rolled up his sleeves. On his right forearm, a serial number was tattooed in purple ink on his skin. 416-MA. The voices finally quieted down. "The hell is this?" he asked. Trinus shrugged. "I have one too. 007-H. It's strange." Trinus rolled up his sleeve, showing his tattoo. "What sort of bullshit is this?" Michael muttered. There were frantic knocks on the door. When Trinus opened it, Ruby, Cadmus, Bunny, and Sakuras all practically fell on top of each other as they entered. "What the hell are these things?" Ruby's wings fluffed up, a telltale sign she was very upset. "They're some sort of tattoo, that's what they are," Michael sighed. Bunny shuffled uncomfortably on her feet. Sakuras seemed unfazed. Cadmus was eyeing Michael's sword nervously. "What are your numbers?" Trinus asked. 001-A, Ruby stated. "I have 002-A. Sakuras has 666-A, Cadmus muttered. 005-T. Bunny displayed her tattoo for the group to see. Hers wasn't purple. It was green. What about you two? Ruby asked. 007-H, Trinus replied. 416-MA. Michael showed the group his. 416. He had recently turned 416, about a month before he'd shown up here. Cornflowers. Cornflowers. Cornflowers! The voices screamed. Shut! Michael mentally screamed back. That's oddly specific, Cadmus pointed out. Ruby and Sakuras nodded. I turned 416 about a month ago. I think it's my age. The letters don't make sense, though, Michael admitted. Old man, Bunny teased. Michael gently bopped her on the head. All test subjects shall report to the village square. A loud, robotic, feminine voice echoed. Michael groaned, grabbing his sword and sheathing it at his side before leading the others outside. As they walked, the dome seemed to pulsate with each step Michael took. When they arrived, the puppeteer stood in front of the fountain, allium vines wrapped around the fountain like some sort of infection. One moment. Okay. Your first trial will begin now. Before we begin, I will explain how these trials work. The winner will be allowed to leave this dome, or, if they choose to stay and continue playing. Your trial today is a simple escape room. Good luck. She chuckled. Michael felt a wave of both fear and grief wash over him. Puppeteer was standing in front of him. She was alive. Yet Michael had a feeling he'd lost her somehow. Like she'd died, and yet was still alive. That sounds easy, Sakuras muttered. Before Ruby could respond, the group found themselves in a new room decked out like some sort of library. Michael looked like he'd seen a ghost, which was mildly concerning because, knowing his reputation, he'd seen a lot worse things than just ghosts. A single note appeared on a round table in the center of the room. Cadmus walked over to it, picking it up. It's written in some sort of strange language. I can't understand it. They showed the group, careful to keep their sunglasses on. How the fuck do you win an escape room? Bunny questioned. Ruby shrugged. I guess there's gonna be some sort of thing mixed in with this that will give us a winner, Trinus suggested. Cadmus nodded. Michael violently shook his head, snapping himself out of whatever trance he'd been in. Give me the note. I can try to translate. Michael held his hand out towards Cadmus. She handed him the note. Michael read it over and smirked. It's in Piglin, he announced. Ruby found that rather ironic. You'd think the puppeteer would be smarter since Michael is a piglin, she thought. Michael read it out. To solve this riddle, you must create what it asks for, he read. The riddle itself is in Celestial. Celestial? Like the language of the gods? The language enchantment tables use? Trinus cried. I can kinda read it. Let me try. Bunny held her hand out. Michael handed her the note. Bunny muttered to herself for a moment before reading the note aloud. What grows when you feed it, and dies when you water it? She read. It's fire, Cadmus answered. So we have to light a fire. That's easy, Sakuras muttered. Michael nodded, pulling his sword out of its sheath. Cadmus moved away from him, a flash of fear on their face for a moment. Anyone got a stone or something? He asked. Whoa. Ruby nodded, pulling a stone out of her pocket. She'd found it on the ground the day prior and kept it just in case. Michael took it, striking his sword with it so hard, sparks flew. His sword was netherite, which made it insanely durable and fireproof. Fireproof. After a few strikes, the sword's blade burst into flames. Bunny watched the flames with her mouth agape. "Netherite is so cool," she exclaimed. Michael smiled and nodded. After a minute or two, another note appeared. Trinus took it and read it aloud. "Open me, and you can't see me without a mirror. Close me, and you can't see at all." He read, "Eyes. You can't see your eyes without a reflection. You can't see at all if they're closed," Sakuras stated. Ruby found that strange because Sakuras was blind. "How do we make eyes?" Ruby asked. "We draw them. Knowing the puppeteer, he means the symbol of Atlas," Michael explained. He sheathed his sword again. The flames died the second the blade entered the Hoglin leather sheath. "You know what it looks like?" Bunny asked. Michael nodded. "I've fought a lot of Order cultists. I've basically got that damn eye burned into my brain by now." He sighed. Michael took the note from Trinus, running his finger along his sword's blade just enough to create a small cut. Michael drew the symbol of Atlas, the god of the overworld, in blood on the back of the note. The symbol was normally a plain, bright green eye, but Michael apparently thought it better if he used the more intricate version, which was the same except more Egyptian style. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Trinus screamed. Trinus cried. I feel like I'm doing it more Australian. Is it too Australian for Trinus, chat? What the fuck is wrong with you? Is that too Australian? Or is that British? I can't tell. Good? Okay. Michael looked at Trinus after he was done, a look of indifference on his face. The rest of the group, except for Sakuras, was staring at Michael with a mixture of shock and horror. "What?" Michael asked. "Why the fuck did you just do that?" Cadmus exclaimed. "Relax, guys. Look, I'm fine." Michael held up his finger. The cut was completely gone. No scars or anything. No sign of a wound. "How the hell did you do that?" Ruby exclaimed. "That's not a normal piglin thing," Bunny piped up. "Yeah, it's not. It's part of my blessing from Ares. I can't hurt myself more than a paper cut without it healing quickly. But piglins do heal faster than mortals in the overworld," Michael explained. "That makes sense." Sakuras nodded. The note crumpled into a ball on its own and exploded like a small, non-lethal paper grenade. Ruby jumped back. The final note appeared in her hands. It was in common. "I can be calmed but not tamed. I can burn but can't be put out. I was many, and now I am singular." "What am I?" she read. "What the fuck does that mean?" "Good question. Look around the room. Maybe there's a hint?" Sakuras suggested. The others nodded. Trinus climbed under the table. Michael and Cadmus looked on top of the shelves or the ceiling. Ruby checked the bookshelf. She pulled out a few books. One had a phoenix on the cover that made her skin crawl. The other had a wailing ghast on its cover. The third had an ender dragon resting in a fetal position. "I found 3 books," she announced. "Bring them over here," Sakuras instructed. They'd somehow managed to find their way to the table, pointing to the center. Ruby walked over, placing the 3 books the 3 books front covers up and down on the table. Trinus crawled out from underneath just as Ruby placed the note down. So, one of these things can be burned but can't be put out, can be calmed but not tamed, and used to be many, but now is singular, Bunny muttered. You can't put out a phoenix's flame, Michael stated. No, but you can tame a phoenix, Sakura said. Ghasts are one of the most prominent mobs in the Nether, so they're definitely out, Cadmus muttered. It's an ender dragon. Michael's tone was a mixture of pain and annoyance. Ruby didn't ask why. Maybe he had trauma with dragons or something. She didn't care enough about that anyway. She'd ask him later. How the hell do we make a dragon? Trinus exclaimed. Michael? Cadmus turned their gaze to the piglin. Michael shook his head. I wonder if his voices know, Ruby thought. Michael held up his left hand as a sign for quiet. Trinus looked up at him with concern. I wonder if his voices are telling him something, Bunny muttered. I was thinking the same thing, Ruby replied. Michael was muttering in Piglin, which, to everyone else, sounded like he was oinking. He did that this morning, too. I don't think he knows it happens, Trinus explained in a worried tone. I wonder where his voices came from. Maybe he's schizophrenic? Ruby thought. Sakuras walked over to Michael. They placed a hand on the piglin's shoulder and squeezed. Michael shook his head, snapping back to reality and looking at Sakuras with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. Sorry about that, Michael sighed. Don't be. It's out of your control, Cadmus reassured him. Did they tell you anything? Bunny asked. No, they're just screaming about cornflowers and someone who goes by the name the Dragon Rider, Michael explained. Let's focus on the task at hand. How do we make a dragon? Sakuras asked. And no, Michael, you may not use your blood again. They continued. Michael let out a mildly annoyed sigh. You're no fun, he said sarcastically. There are pens in this drawer right here, Cadmus said. Somehow she managed to sneak away from everyone else and had opened a drawer without being seen. Michael sighed, walked over, and grabbed a dark red fountain pen. The pen's metallic parts were made of gold, and there was a bright yellow cross on the side Ruby guessed was supposed to be the front. Isn't that the same pen the golden boar supposedly used? Bunny asked. Yeah, it's hers. He never goes anywhere without this thing. Michael sounded concerned. How do you know that? Trinus asked. Michael sighed as he took the note from the table and turned it to the blank side. I need water. Y'all, my vocal cords are gonna be dead. Like the puppeteer, the golden boar helped raise me. Specifically, she trained me in practically everything combat-related. My fighting style is often compared to theirs, too. Something is definitely wrong, Michael explained. I don't know what's worse, the fact one of us is a traitor, or the fact Michael knows this much about the puppeteer. Ruby thought. Michael was deep in his drawing. It had only been 5 minutes, yet the sketch already looked more like an ender dragon than the ender dragon on the book cover. When Michael was finished, he put the pen in his pocket. Now what? Cadmus asked. The note glowed a bright purple, folding itself into a key. The key was solid amethyst, with intricate, vine-like golden markings. The key fell into Ruby's hands. Michael looked at it. He looked like he knew something more. Put the key in that lock right there. The one that looks like a wolf head? The one that looks like a wolf head, Bunny exclaimed. Ruby walked over to the lock. It was a black wolf's head with almost glowing purple eyes. Its mouth was open in a snarl, and the keyhole had nestled itself in the back of the lock's mouth. Ruby took the key and turned the lock. The lock opened and fell to the floor. The key disappeared. The wolf's head began to glow and grow in size. It sprouted a body. "Get behind me," Michael ordered. The piglin drew his sword and struck the hellhound's side just as the massive beast bit Ruby's left wing. The pain surged through her back. The wing wasn't completely gone, but Ruby doubted she had enough of it left to fly ever again. The hellhound lunged at Bunny, who let out a yelp. A green barrier appeared around Bunny for a quick second, and Ruby could barely make out the outline of a hair before it disappeared. Nobody else seemed to notice. "Shit, you okay?" Cadmus exclaimed. "I'm fine," Bunny muttered. We. Michael lunged at the hellhound again, grabbing the creature's scruff and throwing it against the wall. The hound yelped in pain before standing back up and jumping at Michael, its mouth heading straight for the piglin's throat. Michael held his sword in front of him, thrusting upwards just before the hellhound could bite. The demon let out a loud howl of pain before falling limp on the ground, skewered by Michael's sword. "That was terrifying," Trinus stated plainly. No shit, it sounded terrifying. Ruby could hear the eye roll in Sakaris's voice. Michael sheathed his sword again, a look of unease on his face. The locked door opened, revealing an obsidian maze on the other side. Michael's face went so pale Ruby thought he turned white for a moment. "To win, you all must enter the maze, split up, and find the artifact that is hidden inside. You will know it when you see it. When you find the artifact, the maze will disappear, and you must place the item on the pedestal." The puppeteer's voice echoed through the room. Cadmus placed a hand on Michael's shoulder in an attempt to ground the man. "Michael, you okay?" Trinus asked. Michael held a hand up. "We." His signal for the voices. Something was really wrong with him, but Ruby knew it was pointless to try and ask him now. Michael walked over to the maze, motioning for the group to follow. He was talking in sign language, which Ruby could not understand. Every once in a while, Michael would point to someone and in a direction. Everyone branched off in the directions Michael had pointed out. Ruby kept her hand on the wall, guiding herself through the maze slowly. "Weird-ass challenge. Where's this artifact thing?" she muttered to herself. Ruby checked every dead end, every corner, every hallway she came across, muttering to herself. The more she wandered, the more Ruby found she was second-guessing herself. "Is that something?" she asked the empty air. In front of her, in a corner, sat a chest with an obsidian lock with streaks of amethyst that looked like strings woven into the glassy stone. Ruby walked up to the chest, grabbing the lock. "If I need a key to unlock you, I swear to gods," she threatened. Thankfully, she did not need a key to find a key. A key? A key? What? She took the lock off and opened the chest. Inside was a plain old book with a band of deep purple running vertically along the front and back covers. The book had a bookmark made from a small, bright red chain that hung limply next to its spine. "Huh. I hope this is it," Ruby muttered as she lifted the book out of the chest. The second she stood upright with the book in hand, the maze came crashing down. "What the fuck?" Trinus squealed. "You found it!" Bunny exclaimed, clapping happily for Ruby. Cadmus, Sakuras, and Michael all looked at her, though in Sakuras' case, it was more them facing her. Michael nodded at Ruby with an approving smile. The voices screamed louder and louder every second Michael stayed in the room. Ruby grinned at him as he and the others walked closer to her. "Warden, Warden, Warden!" the voices screamed. When Michael laid eyes on the small red chain that dangled from the book that Ruby held. In the center of the room, a marble pedestal rose up from the floor. Trinus said something to Ruby that Michael couldn't hear. "Danger, blood, fight, fight, danger!" the voices screamed. "Shut up!" Michael snapped out loud. The voices quieted down again. "You okay?" Bunny asked. "The voices. They're screaming again." "They don't seem to want to shut up here," Michael explained once the voices calmed down again. He hated this. Just because he'd been infected as a child didn't mean the egg's stupid voices had to keep torturing him hundreds of years later. Sadly, the voices thought otherwise. He wouldn't tell any of the others about this, though. "You're supposed to put the book on the pedestal, Ruby, remember?" Sakuras reminded. Ruby nodded, walking up to the pedestal and placing the book down. The group let out gasps of surprise and horror. "She's fucking gone!" Whoa, that was Australian. Australian Trinus, y'all. "She's fucking gone. Where did she go?" Trinus screamed. Shit, shit, shit," Michael muttered. "This is bad. This is so bad." Ruby found herself standing in what looked like someone's study. A dark oak desk sat in front of her. A plush purple chair was sitting behind the desk, back turned to her. A gray hand poked out from the chair's left, Ruby's right, gently swirling a glass of wine. "So, we have our first winner," the puppeteer said. "Yeah. Where am I?" Ruby asked. The puppeteer chuckled, yet didn't answer her question. "You have two options here, Ruby T. Lilith. Make a deal with me, or die," he explained. "What? But you said that the choice was between leaving the dome and staying," Ruby exclaimed. "Simple, child. I lied. That's what I'm known for. Now, make your decision." The puppeteer turned in her chair, revealing her face. Their eyes were a deep purple, and their hair was a darker gray than their skin that was tied into a braid that rested on their left shoulder. The braid was intricate. Small allium flowers littered their hair. I choose the deal." Ruby hated how much fear she let slip into her voice. The puppeteer set her wineglass down, standing up. He was taller than Ruby. Not by much, sure, but still taller. "Here's what I propose. I will restore your wing, and I will give you a totem of undying, and in return, you do me a favor. Whatever I wish, whenever I wish it. Do we have a deal?" The puppeteer explained. Ruby paused for a moment, looking at the other's outstretched hand. "I don't want the totem. I want to know what that thing was that almost attacked us yesterday," Ruby told the puppeteer. "All right, then. Do we have a deal?" he questioned. A sadistic smile stretched across their face. Ruby let out a worried sigh. "Yes, we have a deal." She nodded, reaching out and shaking the puppeteer's hand. After she pulled away, she felt something wrap tightly around her neck, wrists, and ankles. Ruby looked down just in time to catch a quick glimpse of bright purple strings. "Well then, to answer your question, the being that tried to attack you and your friends was my void. It is the form that the thousands of souls have decided to take. Be careful. They are all extremely aggressive, the puppeteer admitted. Ruby looked at her in horror. The puppeteer smiled again, waving a hand in the air before sitting back down and picking up his wine glass. Your wing will be healed by morning. Goodbye, they said. Ruby disappeared, now finding herself standing next to the same fountain the puppeteer had stood in front of to explain their twisted trial. A note appeared on the stone next to her. Do not tell anyone else, it read. The note burst into flames after Ruby read it, taking the brief shape of a phoenix before it fell into the water. The first winner and the first deal. You don't know what you've just done, little bird. Find the council members and find them quickly. And that's it. That's it, y'all. That's it, sillies. That is The Puppet Experiment, chapters 1 and 2. I'm going to delete this. Yes! Yes! Dude, I'm very happy. I'm glad I got to do this, not gonna lie. And I'm glad that I get to share it with my amazing community. But chapter 3 is in the works. I am working on chapter 3. Good shit. Oh, thank you. I'm gonna practice it like 50 more times before I like do anything else with it. But for right now, we're not dealing with that. We're not gonna deal with that part. We're not dealing with it. So, let's figure out who to raid. We need to find someone to raid. Who's live? You know what? I have not seen... Oh. I've not seen... Did I mute the thing? I did. Okay. I've not seen this person in a long time. I need to be very careful to not click the knock button. Alright. Alright, chat. We are rating Linksy Liam. He is currently doing Minecraft Mania and Inside something. He's doing MCCI. So, chat, as always, remember you are loved, you are cared about, I care about you, and I will see you guys next stream. See you later, chat.